Hello everybody, James here, Ask Dutch Anything 83. What does Ask Dutch Anything mean? Well, it means that you can ask Dutch whatever you request. Oh, hang on, we've got a certificate has floated up there. That is one of the certificates.
That is my University of Dutch diploma. And it says you completed 4 years of study in the wrestling arts, and it's signed, and it usually has a sticker right down here that I put on it. And then I sign it, Dutch Mantell and Zeb Colter. You get 2 autographs with it, and you can find out about this at dirtydutchmantell@gmail.com, and they're available right now.
There you go. So there are books.
They're individually manufactured, by the way.
Absolutely. There are books as well, Tales from a Dirt Road and the World According to Dutch, WCW trading cards. I'm sure there's a hat or whatever, all signed merchandise available at that email. And the other email you need to know, of course, is questionsfordutch@gmail.com. That's how you get in touch with the show, as far as sending in questions and all that kind of affair. And that is what everybody has done on this list, as they do every week, apart from the first one. Because 2 weeks ago, I said we should watch the Concession Stand Brawl. And then last week, we wanted to do the Wisdom of Dutch Mantell, of which we're doing part 2 today. But then I thought, well, we'll just do it till next week. Well, next week is now, so we're going to sit here and we're going to watch the Concession Stand Brawl all the way through. So Dutch, 1 second, I'll key it up for us. Dutch was already laughing, so you know he's going to enjoy it.
And he knocks him flat off his feet.
So we've never watched
Ferris
this.
Down and Latham comes in. Nails Dundee and is
this
run
is-
out now.
There's Lawler
comes in,
and Dundee.
exchanges the favor on Ferris.
And they're versus the Moondogs. And I don't know what.
That's Wayne Ferris.
That's Wayne Ferris
And Larry Latham, I believe.
and Larry Latham.
Billy, a real
Well, I don't know if Wayne Ferris was
They
a
have banged on him and
a
beat
Moondog
on him.
at one point or not.
Yeah, he was a blonde bomber, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah. You know, at one point, I didn't know that Wayne Ferris and Jerry Lawler are related.
Cousins. Are they first cousins?
Yeah, something like that. And Latham, Wayne had to learn that he had to leave for him to actually get a top spot, even though Jerry was his cousin. He didn't really put him in the spots where he could excel, or according to Wayne. But then again, you could call that wrestler discomfort or wrestler bitching. And there's the referee, Jerry Calhoun, who by the way, was Jerry Lawler's at one time his brother-in-law. So you're seeing
The family affair.
Yeah, basically that's what you're seeing down there. So this is I'll tell you exactly where this is. This is in Tupelo, Mississippi, and a lot of you. And it looks like Dundee is bleeding already. Yeah, it looks like it. Now Tupelo, Mississippi is famous for what?
Oh, I don't know.
Elvis.
Is it?
That's where he was born, Tupelo, Mississippi.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Then, when he got pretty well established, he moved to Memphis, to what is called, I guess, the Mansion or Graceland, and they used to run tours through there with the fans, and it did very well. Okay, Dundee has a. I like that movie. Pull the referee out, and it's just what they say, what Lance Russell would call a Pier 6 brawl. Now I don't know. I doubt if Lance came up with that term or who made that term acceptable in wrestling, but that's what they called. I guess it was Gordon Soley, a Pier 6 brawl. That's what I think. So apparently they have won this match.
Yeah, it definitely looked like Jerry Lawler broke up the pin, but then Jerry Calhoun
Oh, no. Look at these bad losers. Lawler and Dundee, bad losers. Now they're paying the price for it. Oh, whoa.
Jeez.
The belt back to the...
He didn't even register it.
No. And let me just give the people this. They can't see this, but this building is probably one of the worst buildings really I've ever wrestled in. And it was a regular building. It was a regular Friday night town. And it used to be, from what I heard, where they had chickens laying eggs. And somebody bought it and turned it into a little arena. And they only took the back part of it and made it into a wrestling arena. And the rest of it, I don't know what they used that for, but it was just an old rundown building. I'm sure it's not there anymore, because the building probably at this point right here was, I bet, 50 years old then. And it was a wooden building, and that referee's taking a butt kicking in there. Right now they're outside the ring. Now I can't hear the...
Oh, do you want me to turn up the commentary?
I can't hear see what Lance is saying.
Our time is running out right now. We're going to have to call it quits as our time is up on Championship Wrestling. It looks like that they are outside the ring. This is Lance Russell from the Tupelo Sports Arena.
And didn't they keep the cameras running?
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, can you get the camera? They got a hell of a fight going on down there. See, can you get it down?
I've never seen this anywhere else except Memphis.
We'll go back and edit this.
Keep that camera running. And they hooked that camera, I guess it was set up out there in the arena, and then they just took it off the deal and took it back to the back. See how dark it is?
I know it. We'll edit it back in.
There he is. There's Lance. Yeah.
Okay, can
Lance
you get it
was a
rolling?
great guy.
What you're looking at
now we're in the
is
concession
the wildest
stand.
fight we've seen. Latham and Ferris.
Do you think they told the building they were going to do
in the
this?
concession stand, all four of them bleeding.
It didn't matter. They probably, whatever they did, probably helped
each
the
other.
building.
Lawler.
They wrecked the building. Oh, Lawler got a little hot there, Dwayne. He laced him with that belt.
Watch out, Mike.
Now that and all the catch-up. And this is the thing they got that Memphis was famous for. These wild brawls. And Lawler, he's working his butt off back there.
Why is the referee trying to get involved now? I mean, he's already been beaten up several times. You'd give it up, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the referee's still in there trying to separate them, and he's... I don't know what he thinks he can do, but... A lot of times a referee will stay close to this just in case a fan jumps in. And he just there for really a little security. You know, Jerry Calhoun, you know what he would... he worked for FedEx about 40 years, I think. And retired there. Well, we know that, Lance. See, all Lance did, he just took his...
This was at the time when like people were just getting video recorders as well, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
like the late 70s. Yeah.
See that guy in the white shirt there when it pans back? See that guy in the white shirt there in that window? He's the manager of the building.
Oh right.
Yeah. He's up there to see if anybody will tear up his concession stand. But he really enjoyed when wrestling come in because it would draw a halfway decent crowd. I don't know what else they used it for other than wrestling. I don't know.
And also being a barn.
And that is a barn. Basically, it's what it is. It's a barn converted, a chicken barn, and converted to a wrestling arena. See, you couldn't see WWE doing into this because, first of all, no telling what would happen, and you couldn't control that crowd. Here, since there's not a lot of them. you could probably halfway control them all.
He is not a
What
promoter
did he hit
here.
him with there? A trash can?
No
Trying to
table.
get him to stop.
Oh, was that Jerry?
He's
I
got
think Jerry
Dundee
took
Looks
Jerry.
like it.
Jerry,
It looks like Jerry Jarrett. It sure does. Yeah, that's him. That is him. And I didn't know Jerry Jarrett was down there.
Lawler.
I've never seen him in.
Latham
I've never.
hitting the
This is the
right
first
side
time
of
I've
the
ever
block
seen
handle.
this
Dundee going
video
after him.
about
It's
it.
just a street brawl.
How did you know that the owner was in the white shirt then? You picked that out pretty quickly.
Well, no, because he always wore a white shirt, and he's up there right at the concession stand, and he's got his arms out, kind of.
Jarrett trying to.
He's watching his stuff. If somebody's going to mess up his popcorn machine, no, don't touch that.
He's probably
Don't touch
tallying
that.
up all the damage that's been.
They're
Oh, yeah.
falling all over.
Caused.
Mustard everywhere.
Mustard
Oh, yeah,
everywhere.
Ferris
Now,
laying
Jerry
in the middle
Jarrett.
of the floor. Dundee.
Oh, they're getting out of there
Pushed
now.
out of there. Lawler.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah, but
So that
there
was
it
it.
is.
And the thing is, that's not the only one they did, because I think it did like great
No,
business.
they did others.
But that
but
first one
different-
did great business, and then they
Yeah,
went,
but-
well, if that one worked,
Yeah, and they wore it out. They said, "Oh God," they just had different names. They wanted to do one in Louisville. I do remember this, but Louisville, you had to come out of the dressing room and go around the corner, walk halfway down the concourse, and they said, "Nah, that's too far." So, but Tupelo it did well, and till they wore it out. So, what made you want to play that one?
oh, that's just the original. I thought it was something we could watch together.
That was the original.
That was the original,
that
but I'm sure like the Rock and Roll Express might have done one a couple of years later or something like
Maybe.
that. There was definitely a sequel, at least one sequel.
Mm-hmm. I think there were two.
Tupelo Concession
Oh.
Stand Brawls, 31 Days of Death Matches. Oh, that's nothing to do with anything, don't worry. Okay then, so next up, Matt from Chattanooga says, I was recently watching some old wrestling footage and saw that Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka were tag team champions in Georgia Championship Wrestling. Were you around Georgia Championship Wrestling during that time? Whose idea was it to put those two together? Terry Gordy and Jimmy Snuka. It's a weird pairing.
Okay, who was it now?
Terry Gordy, Jimmy Snuka.
Yeah, that's an odd pairing. That didn't last long. So, and Georgia Championship Wrestling, I don't even remember Snuka being there. But I will agree. Who wrote this in?
Matt.
Well, Matt, I'm going to tell you, buddy. I don't remember Jimmy Snuka being even there. I don't even know what they did with him. So, and this was the days, I think, when you had a lot of just different wrestling on different channels, all across the states. If you had a UHF channel, which ever at least medium-sized city had a UHF channel. Yeah, Saturday you could almost watch wrestling all day long. Eddie Gilbert told me one time he used to get up in the morning on Saturday and he'd watch Memphis wrestling from 11 o'clock to 12:30 live. Then he'd get another station from Jackson, and it was the B show of Memphis. Then he'd watch Texas wrestling on a UHF show in Jackson. Then he would watch Georgia Championship Wrestling on Channel 17 at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And then he would watch maybe Mid-South Wrestling later on that night, and then Florida Wrestling about 1 o'clock in the morning. He said Saturdays was nothing but wrestling day at his house. And he said he watched them all. And one thing Eddie would do, and I may have said this before, Eddie always wanted to be a booker. So what Eddie would do, he would have his own little crew he would put together, and he would book this guy versus this guy in a match. And then second under that, he would have a tag team match, so-and-so versus so-and-so. Then he'd have, say, a ladies match Then he'd have another match, but he would do a whole card. And then he would book ahead the next week and the next week. He actually taught himself to book by doing that. And Tommy, his dad, used to do a little booking. So he always wanted to do it. So, and he taught himself how to do it. But Eddie was the type who had very little patience with guys. And when he wanted something done, he wanted it done the way he wanted it done. And I don't think he had the temperament for it, because if you're booking, the talent can drive you up a wall. You know, that's why Vince was so hardcore with talent, because he just couldn't deal with it. And he'd say, you either going to do it my way or you're going to have to look for another job. And usually that would get them to come around. I remember we were talking on the show, the main show this week, about Tony Khan. It's what he needs to do a little bit in AEW. He needs to take a little more hands-on and a little more control of it, because it looks like if you let the inmates run the asylum, things are not going to get better. And people can say, well, when the inmates run the asylum, you know, you're not long for business. I don't think AEW, I think they're going to be in business as long as Tony Khan wants to do it. Really, he's got the money. And so their goal is as long as they can. But I'm saying, to make his job easier and make the show flow better, I think he needs a little more hands-on. And if you make a decision as a booker, even if you're wrong, stand by it.
I'm going to ask about Jimmy Snuka in a minute. What was the first place that Eddie Gilbert booked? Do you know?
I think Mid-South. And that was in the, like 87, 88.
Yeah, it closed in 87, so it would have been
86. Okay.
So he wasn't booking when you were there then, in 85?
No, but when I left, he took over. That's what he did. Then I think he went and he did something with, who was the guy who used to run ECW?
Paul Heyman. So it's like he might have booked.
Before Paul.
Oh,
Paul.
Todd Gordon.
Todd Gordon.
Yeah.
He did it for him.
Alabama, maybe?
Then Alabama. And I remember I was in Memphis once and Paul Heyman came in, and I'm saying, why is Paul Heyman coming here? But then, maybe a year or two later, he had gone back to ECW after Eddie had just blew up and quit. He just got mad one day and said, screw it, I'm out of here. Packed his bag in his car and moved out, and he came back. He came back to Tennessee. But what I think Paul Heyman came to Memphis for is to look at that wide open style. And all he did, he took that style, he took it back to Philadelphia and introduced it to the Philadelphia area. They've never seen wrestling like that. They were used to old WWF stuff, big guys that couldn't move. And Paul brought that style back. They had never seen it before, opened it up, and it took off. And that's why ECW, that they just did such crazy stuff on there. But he learned all that. And of course, he'll deny it now, but he learned all that in Memphis. Just open it up and let things happen. Almost turn the guys loose. Say, guys, you can do anything you want out here. Just make it exciting. So, and then he took it, and and now who owns it now?
What, ECW?
Tony Khan owns it now, right?
No. WWE owns ECW.
They own it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna go to Jimmy Snuka.
Oh, who owns Ring of Honor?
Oh yeah, AEW owns Ring of Honor. Yeah.
Okay, that's where I got it confused.
Yeah. When was the first time you met Jimmy Snuka? Because I guess a lot of non-old school fans would sort of think as Jimmy as only being in the New York WWF and WWF.
He spent a lot of time in Oregon. He spent a lot of time out there. I think he came through Texas. But the only time he really ever got a push, a big push, was with Vince in the old WWF, I guess. Because he was just, and this is how talent can really just slip through the cracks. And it shows you, you know, say you're a booker and I'm a booker, and you take Snuka. Say I take Snuka, and I don't see a lot in him. You know, something's got to pop in my head first, how I want to use him. And then say I don't use him that well, or he's not making enough money or whatever. So he goes and calls you, and you say, yeah, come in. But you see him and you can use him. The talent hasn't changed. The person hasn't changed. What has changed is the creative direction behind him. And so you give him a good story, he takes off. And that's what Vince McMahon, and I don't know who was helping him book. I think Pat Patterson. And Pat Patterson was a great booker from what I've heard, because he did that. He worked out in San Francisco. And this is years ago. And I can't remember Roy Shires.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe I remembered that name. I've never even met the man, but I always heard he was like a super booker, and really attention to detail. And he was the one who came up with the yearly battle royal. That's where Pat got the idea. And Pat brought it back when he was up there with Vince, and Vince liked it. And, you know, the battle royal became a big staple of WWE programming.
Before we get down the battle royal rabbit hole, when was the first time you met Jimmy Snuka? Or at least cross paths with him?
I can't remember. I cannot remember. Maybe Georgia, maybe. But if I'd have met him in Georgia, I wouldn't know who I was meeting. See what I mean?
Mm.
He had never been used like he was used up like Vince McMahon used him. So I've met a lot of guys who later on went to WWF and became big stars. But when I met them, you know, we were just working there. He was just another wrestler to me. And I don't know, I cannot place where I met him.
We'll move on. Chad from Omaha, Nebraska says, hello, Dutch and James. What are your thoughts on bookers versus writers? I think from watching wrestling for years that bookers are better than writers, because bookers were wrestlers or managers and writers have no experience in the ring or fan reaction. Would like to hear your thoughts on it. So what is the difference between a booker and a writer?
Night and day. Night and day. Because a booker, he's had to be there. He's had to know how to tell a story, a coherent story that doesn't jump here, there, you know. But he knows how to tell the story. Now, a booker, there was no such thing as writers before Vince. No such thing. But Vince looked at it like he's doing a TV show. So they need to have something written down, because not all this talent could talk. Now, a booker, if he found a talent who could talk, he didn't have to sit in his office and write, oh, we'll say this and say this and say this. They just wanted the wrestler to go out there and get himself and his opponent or the match over, and make it in such a way that the fans would want to come see it. Now, the writers today, I don't know what they're thinking about. But I don't know how much that stuff is still handwritten. I guess most of it. But and that's why a booker would book a certain guy, because he can talk. If he can talk, you can almost overlook his wrestling ability. But he can talk like Handsome Jimmy. Handsome Jimmy didn't have the greatest work rate. He would play his music, dance to the ring, and go in there in 2 or 3 minutes, boom, boom, daddy. And then they'd play his music again, the boy from New York City, and he'd dance his way back out. And somebody said, "How was that match?" Well, who gives a damn? Hell, but I like the song. I like the dancing. He entertained them for 10 minutes, and they remembered that. Say like Dusty. Dusty's work rate didn't get him in there, but his interview did. Ernie Ladd. See, when you talk about the great guys, they weren't great in the ring, but they were great on the interview. I think it's the interview. I think in getting a guy over, the interview is like 70% of it. Then the rest of it, the booker and the talent comes in. But you got to interest them in the guy as a personality, and that's what grabbed them. And writers now, in the little territories, you didn't need them, because the booker would go around and tell everybody what he wanted to say and what he wanted them to. But all he wanted them to say is, "Hey, next Tuesday night is at such and such a time it's another commercial, and I'm stepping in the ring with so and so, and let me tell you what." And then you go into your interview, and I'll see you then.
I think bookers in a way had it easier in the territory days, because all you would do you would import a wrestler, but they already had their character. They developed their own character and their own routine. Whereas I think writers, they have to come up with the promo. They have to come up with, to a point anyway, or for most people, they have to come up with the characters. Then they have to come up with some elaborate story to try and get them over. Whereas there was a lot more autonomy back in the territory days. Like, you were far more of a self-employed person, where you had to rely on yourself and your ability to get over, and not rely on a team of writers to, do it for you.
Vince, when he had writers, a lot of them had never messed with wrestling before. They just applied to be a writer.
They sometimes would hire people on the basis that they didn't know anything about wrestling.
Right, and they didn't want them to know anything. I suggested one time, I forgot who I suggested this to, that the writers ride between the towns. When we do TV, we do them back to back, but ride from town A, where you did Raw, till you go to SmackDown. You do that on Tuesday nights back in those days. But they said no, they didn't want the writers traveling with the wrestlers, because one thing they said, the wrestlers would give them bad habits, like drinking or taking drugs or something. But they didn't want that. They wanted to go in there and said, "Guys, this is what we got, so write me something." And they didn't want it. And like you said, they didn't want them to have any prior experience in the wrestling business. And that's why it's so different. The bookers determine what matches will go, or what type of matches will go. And the writers go off that criteria. It's a no DQ match, blah, blah, blah. And they would write for that. And they used to say, and I never ran into this with Vince, Vince wanted it word for word. And I never ran into that, because word for word, I don't think I could do it. But I could get the major outlay of it. And sometimes when I didn't want to say something, I'd just leave it totally out. Because one guy would write something, and I went up to him one time and I says, "I don't think Zeb would say this." And they said, "Well, Vince wants it." I said, "Well, let's go see Vince." "Oh, no. Okay. You don't think he'd say it?" I said, "I know he wouldn't say it." "Okay, we'll just take that out." They did not want to go in front of Vince with me. And they'd say, I said, and all I'd have to tell Vince is, Vince, he's not going to say that. And Vince, I think 99 out of 100 times he would have agreed with me, and we'd take it out.
Got a theory. A booker's relationship with a wrestler is far more like intimate than a writer's relationship with the wrestler, because I suppose you've got all these dozens of writers in Connecticut now, and then there's only like a few head writers that might actually relay this information to wrestlers or relay it through the agents. Whereas I guess if you're a booker in a territory, you've got a relationship with every person one-on-one, where you'd have to explain what you want from them and etc. So it's a completely different dynamic, I'd suggest. Would you concur?
what they ran into in WWE, and they found out quickly that they were trying to get the best that the business had to offer, which would mean that sometimes they would get a green guy. And a green guy didn't know how to talk, really didn't even, he just looked great in the ring. He looked, he looked profitable to them. They could promote this guy because he looked good, but he couldn't talk. So when they was trying to do his interview for him, they don't even know how he would present himself. And sometimes I've heard them doing an interview, sometimes 50 times, the same interview over and over and over again, because the guy had never done interviews before. So that's what they were running into. Just because you write something down on a piece of paper and say this, that doesn't mean it's going to get over. Because if the guy doesn't say it without conviction, if he doesn't say it to where you kind of believe it, that this is this guy talking, you're not going to sell him. And I bet the failure stories are a lot more than the success stories.
Next question. If you don't know the answer, we'll skip this one. But Lenny says, okay. Hello, Dutch. I was wondering if you ever heard the story of Jerry Lawler accepting a gig to go to WCW in 1991 to challenge Lex Luger, only to turn them down at the last minute after Eddie Gilbert exposed the whole booking, who was probably informed by Paul Heyman. So did you realise that in 91 that Jerry Lawler may have gone to WCW?
I don't even think I've even heard that. I've never heard that. But who was he going to wrestle?
Luger.
You know why he didn't go?
Because he was going to lose.
Right. That's why he didn't go. You can put all these other theories in the background. He was going to go down, and he was going to lose to Luger like just a job guy. Well, I don't blame him. I would have said, why would you do that? I mean, you've been here on top, and he'd been on top there for 15 years and drawing, not every year, but, drawing big money. He was synonymous with Memphis. But you just go down there and just put Luger over. And I said, that will actually kill you in your hometown. It'll kill you right here. So he didn't go.
Yeah, I think.
And what do you mean, Eddie Gilbert? What did he allegedly he uncovered, or the booking deal?
Yeah, he gave an interview to some radio station at the time, and
what did he say?
I think he just stooged off the entire plan of Lawler coming in, but I think Lawler probably wanted an excuse to get out of that whole deal anyway, because he may have initially agreed to go in, because I think he was going to wrestle Luger in Nashville or Memphis or wherever it be, somewhere in Tennessee, and then he would have lost to Luger on national TV and killed probably his own territory even more than it was dying at that point anyway.
Well, they would have done a hell of a house with Luger versus Lawler, the way they promoted it, especially if it was in Memphis. But if they wanted him to lose, I don't blame Jerry for doing that. I don't care how much money they were going to pay him. I don't think it'd be worth, because he did a lot of other things in Memphis too. He did a lot of other commercials and all this stuff. That would hurt him and all of them. So if you're a star at one time and then you just all of a sudden you can do one thing and you're not a star anymore, you look like your flame has burned out. So, but I never heard that. But I did hear that Eddie would go on and say things he wasn't supposed to say. Mm-hmm. And he'd do it because he was pissed off at somebody.
The theory about that is that he was upset with Paul Heyman, and basically everybody was trying to get him fired from WCW, of which case he would get himself fired the year after. Anyway, Stanley writes in and says, my question is, when wrestlers call a move, do they tell the other wrestler the move they are going to do to them, or are they telling their opponents what moves to do, or does the referee come into place in some of these situations?
It is what it is. You may have I've been in there in the ring with some guys. You go over the match. Basically, a lot of it is done automatically. You've done it so many times. I mean, even with other people. you just really, the only thing you really have to know is the finish. That's all you have to know. The rest of it, basically, or when I was working, we just ad lib it, and we just move along to. I would get some heat on him, and if I would say, "Watch the elbow," he'd watch the elbow or move. I mean, it was not any long term trying to explain a spot to him while we're in the ring. If he doesn't know it, then we're in trouble. Or if I don't know it, big time trouble. But yeah, it's more or less worked out. And what they used to do, you used to go on the loop. They called it going with the loop. So if you were with a guy in this town, tomorrow night you're with the same guy. The night after that, same guy. You may go in some big territories. You could go 2 weeks wrestling the same guy every night, same match, same finish. So if you don't have it about the third night in, you need to have your brain examined.
Next question, Terry from London, England. Hi guys, thanks for all your hard work. I was wondering if Dutch has any memories of writing a column for W.O.W, World of Wrestling magazine, in the late 90s, early 2000s. I used to read it often and remember Dutch moaning about potholes.
Yeah, they started this magazine, and it was a nice magazine. I still got some old magazines, but it was a magazine that was, a regular magazine's like this. This was like this. This was a big one called Wow. You remember Wow?
I don't. I remember like Power Slam and some other ones over here, but yeah. I don't remember Wow.
And they called me up one day and they wanted me would I be interested in doing a column for them? I said, yeah, I'll do it for you. And just an old wrestling story. Of course, they'll take the story, and sometimes it would be too long and they'd have to edit it down or, condense it. And I did that for about, I don't know, not quite a year because they went out of business. But they paid me every month. So, and I do remember it. And I can't remember the stories I wrote, but I could look back on it. I got most of them. I don't think, look up WOW, see how long they was in business.
1 second, I've got to pause there.
Right, 2 years.
2 years, 1999 to late 2001. Yep. So that was a pretty short-lived one.
Yep.
I miss magazines, man. I used to
save
my pocket money to buy magazines. I used to love magazines. I've still got a ton of them. You can't see on yours, Dutch, but for everybody else, I've got a stack of official PlayStation magazines there. Just because I love them, and occasionally I'll read through them from '96.
So you're a magazine collector?
No,
kinda.
No, but I collected one. I collected those magazines for whatever reason, and I just miss them. I miss the month. Getting excited and going to the news agents or wherever to plot down some money every month. I really miss those days. I miss going to Blockbuster. It was woefully inefficient. And now I've got a million different streaming services and we still can't figure out what we want to watch. But yeah, simpler time, man. But you see, for those days.
Back in those days, the wrestling magazines, they promoted your territory. And I used to wonder, why isn't Memphis in here? And finally, all of a sudden, Memphis pops up. So when you're reading this, I bet you said, wait a minute. If you're in California, you said, Memphis, what's going on in Memphis? You've never even heard about it. And you'd read who's in the territory and what's going on. And that's why Lawler, he knew Bill Apter and all those people, because they actually needed him to actually advertise himself is what he used it for. But the Andy Kaufman thing took off because of the magazine. Mm-hmm. And you know the story about Kaufman. He wanted to join WWF, but they wouldn't let him. They said, no, he'll make a mockery of the business. And this was Senior. This is Vince Jr.'s father, turned him down. And Lawler told me one time, he said, I was on the plane with Vince, and Vince, he was sitting there and he was reading with his glasses on, and he had put his glasses down. He said, I wanted that Andy Kaufman before you guys, because I knew of him before you guys knew about him. And he says, I could have kicked my own ass for not getting him before you guys. Can you imagine the business they would have done with Andy Kaufman on that TV and we're on nationwide? Oh, he'd have been. But it wasn't that when Andy did his deal in Memphis, he died about 2 years later. And I didn't even know it, but he had cancer then.
Yeah, I think it was maybe a year, if that, because he was coughing. Because I've seen the original footage. He was coughing really badly on a segment of the Jerry Lawler show.
Yeah.
And then, the story goes that he apologized to Lawler afterwards and said, I'm sorry, but I've got cancer. And Jerry went, that's not funny. I was like, no, I've got lung cancer. And he never smoked. Then he tried to do a bunch of new age healing stuff, which obviously didn't help. And then he dropped dead a year later. But he was in Memphis for quite a while.
The thing about Kaufman, he loved wrestling so much. And I've told you this. They would write him checks. And it couldn't have been much. I don't know. Let's say they wrote him a check for $300 or $400 or whatever. But he drew a sellout. But he wasn't doing it for the money. They could have wrote him a check for $50. He didn't care. He didn't do it for the money. He did it because he wanted to do it. So I'm saying he was the most unprime example of somebody who would headline a major show in Memphis at the Mid-South Coliseum and have 12,000 people in there in that standing room, 12,000 people in there. But if you looked in the ring, there he was, greasy hair, wearing like a toboggan suit or whatever he would wear, a little pair of shorts, weighed 160 pounds with pimples on his face. He was the most unlikely candidate to be in the main event of a show, yet there he was. Because he went out there and he gave the damnedest interviews I've ever heard, and the people, they popped to him. Because when he would go out there and really talk badly of Memphis and of Southern people, oh, they'd get hot. He said, well, I'll tell you right now, I'm so-and-so, I'm Jared Law from Memphis, Tennessee. The people wanted to kill him. So, but he did great. And, and like we looked at him like he was a big star. And he looked at us like we were big stars. So when he was in the dressing room, it was like he was in Toyland. It was like it's the greatest thing he's ever done in his life. And he'd stand over there in the corner and just look around the guys he's seen on TV, and Handsome Jimmy there, and Lawler, and me, and Dundee, and all. So we were like bigger stars than he was. Well, in the wrestling world, we were already established. But he looked like a big star with us because he was on Saturday Night Live and all that kind of stuff. So, but he was like a kid in a toy store. That's all I can say about him.
Next up, Blue says, hi, Dutch and James. Recently, the YouTube channel Title Match Wrestling posted a 2008 interview with Rikishi. In that interview, Rikishi stated he felt Jim Ross was being biased towards him because he was overweight. Shouldn't that be biased against him? Anyway, do you believe that certain people that work for a wrestling promotion, whether it's the owner, writers, or talent management, have this bias towards overweight wrestlers? Also, it was a lot harder for an overweight wrestler to get a title push. Best regards.
Well, yeah, especially with Vince there. Vince didn't like, if they were freakish big, he'd use them. If they were just overweight, no, he wouldn't use them. Like Yokozuna. What do we, 500 something pounds or whatever? He would use him because he's a spectacle. Like you go into the carnival, you're seeing the fat man, but here's a guy that actually had some ability, and Vince would use him. But as far as being fat, no, he wanted you in the gym. He wanted you training because Vince was in the gym every day. for 2 hours. Sometimes he would go to a town. He would have his trainer there. He'd take the trainer on the road with him, and the trainer would go pick him up. They'd go to the gym, an all-night gym, and Vince would work out. And then Vince would go back. He'd get back, say, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and he'd sleep to about 9, and he's up. He probably consisted of about 4 hours or 5 hours of sleep a night, and had a lot of energy. But yeah, being overweight will work against you in the wrestling business.
Right, so let's say Jim Ross tells you, Dutch, lose some weight, or it's going to affect your bookings. You'd probably lose some weight, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, because I would lose weight anyway, because if I didn't lose it, then they're going to, I'm not going to make any money, so I can't feed myself. That's an exaggeration, but yeah, but Vince used it in a health context, because if you get fat, you can have all kind of problems from the fat. But that's being fat extremely fat. But yeah, he didn't like fat people at all.
He sent Yokozuna to fat camp, in 96 or 97, whenever he did. He came back fatter.
Because?
Should have sent him to thin camp. That's the problem. He sent him to the wrong camp.
He sent him to fat camp.
Yeah, basically, yeah. He got sent him to like a clinic somewhere, to help lose weight. And then, but apparently Yokozuna found some fan or something to sneak him cheeseburgers or whatever through the fence.
Yeah. Yokozuna wasn't going to lose any weight. That was his gimmick.
It's his gimmick. It was an addiction. I mean, here's the thing with Rikishi, though, right? Because, he was I say huge, I'm not using physically, I'm saying, as a character, he was huge in 2000. 2004, he'd been injured a lot. I mean, they monkeyed around with his creative as well, so he was not what he was a few years earlier. But then he started putting on weight, and then they just cut him in 2004. Then a couple of years later, he appears in TNA. Enormous. Even because Rikishi's a big guy, but he turned up to TNA barely mobile because he was so fat. And it's like, well, if you want to be in the wrestling business, you've got to at least half attempt to keep yourself in shape, because then people just won't use you otherwise if you can barely move.
Well, the only thing he had going for him at that point was the name and the family association. That's what he had going. But if he was too heavy to do anything, you're beating your head against a stone wall. And it should have become apparent, whoever brought him into TNA, and I can say I didn't do it, but it's a lost cause. So if it's a lost cause, I've always been a believer in cut your losses before they really happen. And I think you'll be better off. So what year did he go in TNA? He wasn't there long.
Oh, no, it was only 2007 or something like that. And you were there at the time, I know that.
Yeah, those people that come through there, I don't even remember them. So it's hard to remember people when you're hiding out in the catering.
Well, in fairness, you probably would have found Rikishi in catering at that point.
I'm going to revise that. I said the only place I ever talked to him was in catering. And we didn't have deep conversations then. He was eating too much.
Dear, right. Oscar says, hello, Dutch and James. Firstly, I'd like to say, Dutch is looking great of late. Keep up the good work. My question concerns the legit acting ability of certain personalities, but maybe for nefarious reasons. Watching the HBO documentary on Andre the Giant years ago, I was moved to see the tears shed by Mr. McMahon. It didn't occur to me to question the honesty of them then, but having become a fan of Tales of the Territories and Dark Side of the Ring and various podcasts from the talent, I can't help but wonder if the Carney Bone came into play. I am a student of acting and picked up on some performance vibes from Abdullah the Butcher when his eyes got wet, and Jake the Snake Roberts when he pauses, looks into the middle distance, grins and sighs. Not to even mention Hulk Hogan anytime he opens his mouth. Do you know if Vince McMahon can cry on cue? Do you know any of the boys who would surprise us with their legit acting capabilities? And yeah, I mean, do you think people go on these documentaries that they ham it up or act sadder, to stick?
No, I think more or less that is, if Vince McMahon is tearing up, I think he's truly affected. Abdullah the Butcher is doing it because he almost died because we just got through talking about fat people. He's lost a lot of weight now.
Still alive.
And he's what now?
He's still alive. Abby, 80, whatever he is.
Oh yeah. Abby hadn't passed away.
No.
I'm going to call him up and tell him you said that.
Well, that I'm still alive.
Oh,
How dare I?
He dropped an elbow on me one time. I swear to God, he damn near killed me. Because, and you know who else could, I'm on another subject now. Who else would drop that snug elbow?
Savage.
Hanson.
Oh, Hanson.
Oh. Abby dropped almost his whole damn body on me. But he had so much fat, so it was, before his body hit me, the fat kind of cushioned him a little bit. But yeah, I think if they're crying on these specials, I think it's probably real. I think. So
Vince McMahon cannot cry on cue, to the best of your
knowledge. I wouldn't think he could. But wait a minute, let's don't downplay him. Vince can do what's going to benefit Vince. So if the crying might help his case, I think you may get a tear or two out of him. Okay, then, to end this show, we're going to do the Wisdom of Dutch Mantell Part 2. Of 2, actually. I thought we'd get 3 parts out of this, but no. We're going to go through this now. So the rest of this email that we were sent over a year ago. So the first half was last week, if you want to see them. And this is people in TNA who wrote down some of their favourite quotes from Dutch Mantell over the course of like 2 years in the booking office, and just people who worked backstage and some people who worked on screen as well. Anyway, these are more conversations now, or little quips you made in conversations. Yes.
So I'm going to read some to you, and you tell me, well, I guess 1, if you remember him, or 2, there might even be a little story behind a couple of them as well. So, first one, Dutch popped huge for Jeff Jarrett's statement on Redacted. So the names have been taken out for reasons. Jeff, I don't think I can beat him up very good. Dutch busts out laughing. I've never heard that before. I've heard I can't work with him, he can't work with me, but never that I wouldn't look very good beating someone up. Who was that?
That's Jeff.
No, I mean, who's he trying to beat up? Kurt or someone?
Who knows? See, these are faceless people, and Jeff said, I don't think I could beat him up. What he was trying to say is, I don't think the guy sells well enough. And if I do beat him up, I don't think he's going to sell it the way I want him to sell it.
Scott D'Amore, Redacted, watches UFC. Now, so he thinks he's a shoot fighter. And Dutch, you responded with, you'd have a shoot that looks like shit.
I do remember. Yeah. I do remember. But see, these were all taken like this the spur of the moment, and I'm leaving.
Jeff asking about an upcoming show. How's that show going to do? Shits? And Dutch responds, hell, it ain't going to do that good. Which, in fairness, you say every week on this show, pretty much, I think.
Oh, yeah. They said they're going to do the shits. I said, hell, it's not going to do that good. That'd be a victory.
Vince Russo. What's with all the swearing? Quit using the F word, Abyss. Abyss. We used to have a swear jar at JB's. Who's JB?
Yep. Who's JB?
Jeremy Borash.
Jerry Borash.
Yeah. Rudy, so I'm assuming Rudy Charles. How much was it? Abyss says, it was 50 cents for the F word and 25 cents for the S word. Dutch, hell, I would have to bring my ATM machine with me. Abyss, you could have just used direct deposit.
Yeah. And hey, that's one of the funniest things that Abyss has ever said, really. And we all popped on it.
Jeff, what is Triple X? Dutch, hell, it's the X Division Freebirds minus the personality.
Yeah, the Triple X were like a bunch of guys weighing about 180 that would fly all over the place. And I said, it's Triple X, like the Freebirds minus the personality. And those guys could do great moves, but they had personality. Oh, it was horrible.
Are you saying that Loki does not have a personality?
Now, well, he's got a personality, but it's not a very likable one.
Christopher Daniels, Elix Skipper, and Loki. That was Triple X. Next up, creative looking at wrestlers available on the independent circuit. Mike Tenay. Everybody is either 5'5" and 130 pounds. Dutch. Hell, they've put on some weight.
That was funny on spur of the moment. Yeah, they've gotten bigger.
Mike Tenay on coming up with a name for TNA, a TNA name for Test. What are we going to call Test? Dutch. Pop quiz.
See, you got to bring some humor to all this or you'll go crazy. Call him Pop Quiz. A pop test. Yeah, just anything.
Abyss was talking about trying to protect the business. Dutch says, too late, the toothpaste is already out of the tube. That's an old one that we've heard.
That is an old one. That's, yeah.
Next one, Vince Russo again.
But they have never heard it. So
well, it's new to them.
Yes, it is.
Dixie thinks that, this is from Vince Russo, Dixie thinks that people will come to see Redacted wrestle for the last time. Dutch, hell, I'd stay outside and celebrate that he's leaving.
Yeah, the people said, oh, this is the last time. Well, okay. We got something to look forward to now.
Abyss, Dutch, do you ever watch To Catch a Predator? Dutch, watch it. Hell, I was on it.
What was the name of the show?
To Catch a Predator.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was on it.
Regarding the big San Francisco wrestling fiasco. What's the big San Francisco wrestling fiasco?
I don't know.
Well, we're not going to find out. Abyss, Vince Russo went. He got his money beforehand. Would you go, Dutch? And Dutch says, hell, I wouldn't go if I got all the money ahead of time. JB, Redacted didn't get anything. Dutch, hell, he's highly overpaid.
Overpaid, absolutely. I forgot who we were talking about.
I know, it just says Redacted here. Jeff, Jarrett on how much to start a new wrestler at. What should the new guy's rate be? Dutch says, hell, start him at $100 and bill him for the rest.
Now, that's pretty good. That is pretty good.
Is that an old one, or are you claiming that?
No, I just made that up. Start him at $100 and bill him for the rest, because he'll owe us money.
Russo, the good thing about him, the new guy in the office, is that he's a mark. Dutch, hell, he'll fit right in. Russo, is he in marketing? Dutch, no, he's just a mark.
That was funny. Is he in marketing? No, he's just a mark.
Jeff, when Matt Conway started with creative. Conway, you a coffee drinker? Matt, not really. Dutch, hell, before you leave here, you'll be an alcohol drinker.
That's true.
Yeah. Abyss asking about his career in wrestling. Dutch, you think I've got 5 more years? Dutch, hell, the way you're going, you'll be lucky to last 5 more weeks.
Yeah, we gave Abyss a hard time. Really.
Jeff on Dutch pitching a new reality show a la America's Got Talent. Remember that idea you had, Dutch? TNA's Got Talent? Dutch, hell, I looked around and I changed my mind.
That's good.
Rudy Charles, Dixie brought up that the buy rates were up 28%. Dutch, hell, instead of 3 buys, we got 4.
Well, that would be about 28%, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be about right. Jeff, but
we would never get the buy rates. We'd say, because they put them back in, they had some kind of a safe in the office, and all that information it was placed in the safe and under, it had a code you have to use to get in it, and nobody knew them. They would never let them out. So Dixie could say, well, gentlemen, the buy rates were up 10% last month. But see, that meant nothing. You could have got 10 buys, and this month you got 11 buys, so it's up 10%. We never got, and I don't know the big deal, she would never let out, hell, it's like she had the goddamn nuclear codes or something that never got out.
Scott
Excuse
D'Amore.
my language.
Oh, excuse your language. Scott Demore, I talk about back in the day, but hell, Dutch, you lived it. Dutch, not really. I just drove through it. Jerry Jarrett.
I just drove through it and then just stayed in catering a lot.
Jerry Jarrett, allegedly, it says here. Dutch, are any of the boys on steroids? Dutch, steroids? Hell, Jerry, we're not even on food. That is a classic Dutchism.
That got me fired.
Jeremy Borash, the new character for the end of the show, cliffhanger, and Dutch follows with, and his valet, Sue Spence.
That's good. Sue Spence, that was good.
One
Off
more.
the top of my head, just like this right there.
Jeff on executing a tricky finish. Executing that is going to be the tricky thing. Dutch executing them. I'm all for that.
The execution, line them up, just shoot them.
Right, reverse Dutchism. So this is you teeing other people. It was only a few. Dutch, so the plan is for Redacted to disappear, then re-emerge. Jeff Jarrett responds with, I like half of that idea.
Yeah, that's good.
Dutch, you could get in the zone watching that, though. And Jeff says, yeah, the sleeping zone. And Jeff, what is Abyss afraid of? Dutch, barbed wire? No, he overcame that. And JB responds, he's afraid of losing his spot.
Yep.
And
see, that to most people, they won't know what exactly we mean by that. But Abyss was the most, I love him to death. He was just neurotic sometimes. And everybody was afraid of him. No, he was afraid of everybody. And it's like, he come up to you out of the clear blue, are you mad at me? Like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm trying to do something here. Are you mad at me? No, I'm not mad at you. And this went on for hell years. So I don't know what childhood ailment he has, but he needed to get rid of it. But we made a joke out of it. It's the only thing you can do.
And this to end it all. Scott Demore and Irish Pat Kenny. Why did you need to put Irish in front of Pat Kenny? I mean, sure you can guess from that name. The Dutch Mantell rating system.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember what it is, or do you want me to read it to you?
Hell of a hand.
Hell of a deal, written here, but that's 5 out of 5. Hell of a deal.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, and you give me one of those. What's that guy like? How's he in the ring?
Dude, hell of a hand.
Okay. What was another one?
No, this is for the match rating system rather than the individual.
Oh, okay.
Number 4, good little deal.
Yeah. Means it's okay.
Number 3, or 3 out of 5, it's all right, man.
Mm-hmm. Passable.
Number 2, and now because we need to leave the swearing in, so I'm just letting you know. 2 out of 5, that was the shits.
Yeah. And what was the last one?
And 1 out of 5, that wasn't just the shits, that was the fucking shits. Hell.
Yeah, that sounds like me. But
There you go. That is the Dutch Mantell rating system. So I think that's a lot better than star ratings.
it's much better than star ratings. It has a little personality behind it.
No,
So, see, where Meltzer uses stars,
you use shits.
How could you? No, that's the okay. Excuse my language. Didn't we have a no swear policy here?
I know, but we're quoting, and if we like bleeped it out, it wouldn't be funny. So that's why I gave a little, warning beforehand.
Okay,
Right.
But
well, I'm going to say on that basis because I've got to go. I've got to run away now. So that is the Dutch Mantell rating system. So please make note of it, and then next time we do a review of a show or something like that, we will use the Dutch Mantell rating system. Just before we go, Dutch is strongly hinting that he would like me to mention the diplomas that he is selling for the University of Dutch. You email dirtydutchmantell@gmail.com. Also, signed books, signed trading cards, and all that kind of stuff as well. So you go to dirtydutchmantell with 2 L's at gmail.com, make your request there. And the other email is questionsfordutch@gmail.com. That's the email you use to email in your questions for future episodes of Ask Dutch Anything. We will see you again on Wednesday for Storytime with Dutch Mantell, episode 145. Until then, everybody in Dutch as well, we the people.
We the people. See you then.